Alright y'all, welcome back to the channel and to some more turkey patterning. And I've got a really interesting combination to try out today. And it's a loading that we have not seen on the channel yet. And I gotta say, this combination, when I pulled everything out and looked at it, this is definitely something that's like straight out of the 90s. So I'm really looking forward to see how it actually does in kind of comparison to some more of today's modern stuff. So for the loads that we have out here today, I found a couple of these still left in the back of the cabinet. These are the Winchester Supreme turkey loads. They are a 12 gauge, 3-inch, 1 3/4 ounce of 4s, and they don't say a velocity, they just say high velocity on there. So I do have the chronograph, so we'll actually be able to see what kind of velocity we're getting. So definitely an old school load there. I don't have very many of those shells left, so we kind of got to make the most of what I do have. And as for our setup, we're going to be running them through today. I brought back out this guy, my Remington 1187 Premier here, but I threw in this choke. This is that old Remington straight rifled super full turkey choke. And I'll throw the picture up here on the screen so those of you who have not seen what this choke looks like can actually see what it looks like on the inside. It's got straight rifling down the middle of the choke, which is definitely pretty interesting. But I figured with this choke, with a early 90s, I believe it is, 1187 here, and definitely a load from the 90s, we kind of have a 25-year-old turkey setup here, and something that probably would have been used back then. So for those of you that have been around the channel for a while, you know that I'm generally not a huge fan of the 4-shot. It does okay, it's just I find it not to pattern quite as well as the 5s or the 6s, and you definitely have a lower pellet count, which doesn't help the case. But I have seen some decent performances out of these older Winchester Supreme loads in the past, so there's a chance we might see some better performance today than what I normally kind of see out of 4s. Now, is this particular straight rifle choke the best combination for those 4s? I really don't know. It's probably not, but I figured if we're going with kind of a 90s setup, we should stick with a choke that goes along with it. But either way, let's go over here and actually test these and see what we can get. Like usual, it's the turkey target set up at 40 yards. I do have the chronograph, so we will shoot it across there. So let's get you guys a view of the target. I'll head up, shoot our shot, we'll glance at our chrono number, and then we'll go see how they performed. So let's head over here and shoot them and see what this 90s classic turkey setup might be able to do for us. Alright, so that shell gave us 1,360 feet per second through the chronograph. The box did not have a velocity on it, but it said high velocity, and I would pretty much agree with that. But for a 1 3/4 ounce load of 4s, that's moving pretty quick. I would have expected 1,200 or so being high speed and a 25-year-old load, but they're definitely moving out pretty quick. But let's go down range to 40 yards and see how they actually performed. Alright, so now we're down here at our 40-yard paper, and this is the results we got. And I gotta say, I am pretty impressed for number 4s and my history with them, not getting them to perform very well. I don't have a problem at all with that kind of performance. We absolutely have a dead bird there. And I think overall we were pretty centered up. If anything, maybe a little touch to the right, but definitely plenty good enough to take this bird. But if we look here, there's nothing on this whole entire turkey target that bird could move his head to and get away. That's absolutely going to be a dead bird anywhere on that piece of paper for sure. Now, what I am seeing that's pretty interesting here is there's almost kind of like a star pattern going on here. There's kind of a point going off up this direction, there's kind of another point going off this direction, then there's one down here, and there's one over here, and there's one going off this way as well. I don't know if maybe you guys can kind of see what I'm talking about there, but it almost looks like the outskirt edges of the pattern flared out into a little bit of a star almost. Maybe that has something to do with the rifling in that choke, just splitting the edges off just a little bit. I really don't know. And it could just be me being kind of nitpicky about it, but it's definitely not bad at all. I mean, you can't really argue with that pattern too much. But it's just something that I noticed, and I'm curious if anybody else kind of notices it as well. But for number 4s, I'm not at all displeased with that pattern right there. There's no doubt about it. Whether it's the 90s or today, that would absolutely take a bird out to 40 yards. No question about it. Okay, and here's the wad we got out of that shell, and it's pretty interesting here. There's nothing really too special to see about it, nothing stuck down in there. But for those of you that have shot a bunch of these Winchester loads or have been around the channel for a while, you may recognize this as looking extremely similar to the Longbeard XR wads. Maybe this might be just a tiny bit shorter, not by much, but it's definitely pretty much the exact same as the Longbeard wads here, I would say. But you can kind of see there the rifling stripes down the side of this wad. So we definitely had rifle engagement through that choke for sure, but there's no rips or tears or anything like that. So I definitely think it did its job for us the way it was supposed to for this test. Alright y'all, well, what did you think about how this combination performed? I was hoping to see some pretty decent results, and I thought we might be okay looking down that 40 yards, but that definitely kind of exceeded my expectations a little bit. I know how tricky number 4s can be sometimes to get to really pattern well, so that is definitely a usable turkey pattern. I wouldn't have any issues hunting with that pattern, but that just goes to show that if you had the right gun and choke and load combination, even 25 years ago, you could still absolutely take a bird out to 40 yards. So with that being said, what other choke combinations or other gun might you want to see these Winchester Supreme 4s through? I think I have 3 or 4 of those shells left, so we kind of got to make the most with what we've got. So if there's a combination that you know that I have and want to see, then by all means suggest it down below and we'll bring it out here and test it. But what do you guys think about it? Is that a load and choke combination of stuff that you would use, or have you used that like 25 years ago? Was that your old setup? Leave a comment and let me know your thoughts about it. But on that note, I'm going to get back to doing a bunch more testing for y'all, and I'll see y'all in the next one.